And joining us now is former CIA Director John Brennan. Director Brennan, thanks for being with us. The president was very clear in urging the prime minister to, quote, take the win for having overwhelmed all of the Iranian missiles incoming, the 300 missiles and drones, and take the win with the help, of course, of the U.S., the Brits, the French, the Jordanians, and not retaliate. Netanyahu obviously didn't want to do that. They all agreed in the war cabinet that they did feel they had to retaliate, but they did in a very low-key way. What's your bottom line as to where we come out of all of this?
Well, Andrea, I think Prime Minister Netanyahu and the war cabinet did heed the counsel that the Biden administration was offering, was to make sure that this was not going to escalate into a major regional conflict that I don't think anybody wants. So it's clear that that strike in Isfahan was both limited in scope and in impact, which is what I think was wanted by the Biden administration, not to do something that's going to trigger the Iranians to carry out retaliatory strikes. So we've had several strikes leading up to the last night's events, and I think both sides thought that the others had passed a red line. The Iranians believed that the Israelis passed a red line when they struck a facility in Damascus that the Iranians claim was diplomatic, killing a significant number of senior Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders. And at the same time, Israel thought that Iran had tripped a red line by assaulting Israel with over 300 missiles and drones. So those two red lines, I think, prompted what we're at today now. But what Israel clearly wanted to do was to be able to respond to Iran, send a signal that Israel has the capability to get into the heartland of Iran, but to target infrastructure facilities that we're not going to lead Iran to be able to say that they need to retaliate. This is, I think, an off-ramp. Hopefully they're going to take it. But by all indications, in terms of things that the Iranians have said publicly, they are seeking to downplay the strike and to get back into the normal course of working through proxies to try to put pressure on Israel in light of what happened in Gaza.
CIA Director, one of your successors, Bill Burns, spoke at the George W. Bush Forum yesterday in Texas before the Israeli attack, but of course with this in mind. And here's what he had to say about Iran's attack on Israel last weekend.
The Iranians fired off something like 330 drones and missiles combined. Turned out to be a spectacular failure for them. Thanks to integrated air defense, good intelligence, the Israelis themselves, but supported by the United States, some regional partners, some international partners as well. Of those 330 missiles, only 4 or 5 actually impacted in Israel, and none of them did any significant damage. So, it's a reminder of the quality of the Israeli military. It's a reminder of the fact that the Israelis have friends, starting with the United States, but others as well.
Is that a warning to Iran to sort of bolster Israel's recovered, deterrent? Partly accomplished, I guess they would think, by the Damascus hit, but certainly this as well, the way they withstood the Iranian reaction because of the humiliation to their military after October 7th and the disaster of the massacre. And is it partly a strong warning to Iran? Israel has friends. Defensively, if you counterattack, we will be at their side. And there were other allies as well. It was so striking that Jordan was. Is that part of his message?
Yes, it's clear that Israeli air defenses are second to none in terms of what they were able to do with the assistance of the United States as well as with other friends and partners, including in the region. So I'm sure that Iran was surprised that not more of their missiles and drones got through, about 1% or so, which was just an amazing, amazing performance on the part of Israel, again, in conjunction with partners and friends. But I do think that Bill is saying that clearly Iran has to take account of its failure to penetrate Israeli air defenses. And therefore, I think that's why we're going to see that Iran is not going to respond in any escalatory way at this point, because Israeli military capabilities are far, far superior to Iranian capabilities. Although Iran does have military capabilities, the Israelis are well able to defend themselves as well as to take offensive actions. But the Biden administration has made very clear that while the United States stands ready and will help Israel defend itself, it will not engage in offensive operations that the Israelis might decide to undertake.
They've been in a shadow war, of course, for years and years, as you know so well, having been in that region and being a station chief there in the region. Do you expect now some Hezbollah response from the north, opening a second front at a time when Israeli reservists are home celebrating the Passover holiday, and they're obviously heavily invested in Gaza and in what they claim that they can do against Hamas there? Israel would be very vulnerable, wouldn't they, to a major attack from the north from the Iranian proxy Hezbollah?
Well, Hezbollah does certainly have great capability to do damage in the north of Israel. And so I fully expect Hezbollah to continue to rain down some rockets against Israel. But at this point, I do not expect Hezbollah to do anything that would, in fact, trigger a broader war. I think, again, it's clear that Iran does not want a war at this time. Hezbollah does not want its capabilities and forces to be decimated by the Israelis. And I don't think Israel wants to engage in a major conflict right now with Hezbollah or Iran. And so, therefore, I think we're going to return to the status quo of prior to some of these strikes over the past 2 weeks. So we're going to see strikes from the Houthis and as well as Hezbollah and other surrogates that Iran has in Syria. But I do not believe, absent new developments, that there's going to be a major eruption of violence that is going to, again, engulf the region.
Hey everyone, MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.